The white walls of the university's review office twisted the fluorescent light into something unkind, throwing pale shadows across the committee's faces. 3 professors sat at the end of a long varnished table, their folders neatly stacked, eyes soft with practiced compassion. "Lucas, your proposal is ambitious," the head, Dr. Muniz, said, each syllable measured and muffled by her stoic lips. Rain pattered against the high windows, tapping out a rhythm I tried to match with my vibrating knee. The concept diagrams and calculations I'd printed out lay untouched between us, stark against the smooth wood. If I craned my neck, I could have read the margins where I'd scratched hopeful notes weeks before. Instead, I clutched my hands together beneath the table, fingers suddenly too stiff. "You want to build a fully autonomous bipedal robot capable of navigating irregular terrain by yourself in just a year." Professor Vasconcelos, always logical to a fault, didn't look up when he said this. The hint of a smile never reached his eyes. "The funding you're asking for? It's well outside the norm," Dr. Muniz finished. "We must invest in proposals that are feasible, I'm sorry. Maybe you can adjust your topics." My gut squeezed tight, but this is the core of my research. Robotics is advancing fast if nobody tries. "It's a noble dream, Lucas," said the third, Professor De Rosa, softer than the others, "but dreams alone don't build robots." I left the office with my portfolio pressed to my chest, the sound of the closing door echoing through me. Outside, the hallway buzzed with voices of students, none of whom looked my way. Their laughter bounced off the cold tile while I trudged past, eyes fixed on the cracks between the stones. Later that night, back in our small apartment in the Baquero district, Mom ladled soup into chipped bowls at the kitchen table. My brother Andre had come over, soccer jersey half-tucked, eyes darting between the TV and me. She finally broke the silence. "How was your presentation, Philho?" I shrugged, trying to keep my voice steady. "They said no, too ambitious, too expensive." Andre snorted. "Told you, why not just get into AI or something? People love those chatbots, you know, the ones that tell jokes. That's practical." Mom pressed her lips together but didn't disagree. I watched her stir her soup, her shoulders slumped forward. "Your father worked 30 years at the train yard," she murmured. "He didn't need ambition or robots, he just worked hard." "I am working hard," I said, strung. "This could put Curitiba on the map for robotics." Andre shot me a grin, half pity, half something sharper. "Put us on the map. The only thing Curitiba built is parks for old men to jog. Robots would just fall in the river." Their laughter mixed with the clatter of spoons, and I felt something heavy knit itself inside my chest. The weeks that followed blurred into long days and longer nights. The university granted me a spot as a TA teaching first-year programming. I paid my share for groceries, picked up extra shifts wiring classroom projectors, but that wasn't what gnawed at me after every returned sleep. Whenever my friends gathered at the cafe near the bus terminal, I stopped going. They repeated the same questions. "Any luck yet, Lucas?" they'd say, voices lilting with curiosity and secret pity. "Still chasing that robot?" I learned to smile, sharp and empty. "Just part-time teaching," I'd answer. "Maybe I'll try something else." By the next semester, I didn't bother replying. Instead, when I wasn't working, I haunted electronics shops downtown, tracing my fingers over dusty microcontrollers and servo packages. Sometimes, I watched the autumn drizzle gather on the bus windows, blurring my face into something unrecognizable. If there was a bottom to disappointment, I fell through it quietly. I packed away my circuit diagrams, boxed up my blueprint notebooks, and told myself that I'd come back to it someday. When someday passed into months, I bought a simple ticket out of my routine. It started with an ad for an internship in Sao Paulo, a robotics startup, just 5 engineers, a co-op lunchroom, and a wild-eyed founder who believed in me because he'd once been rejected too. I rented a room with a view of air conditioners rattling over crowded streets, and every free hour was spent tinkering in a workshop behind the warehouse, soldering my ideas into shape. We built small things at first: sensor arrays for farm drones, automatic sorters for recycling plants, nothing glamorous, but I remembered how it felt to turn code into motion, to hear servos hum in answer to my signals. I let the world shrink to the machines and the people crazy enough to chase after them. Benays, the founder, watched me one night as I reprinted a leg for a cargo-carrying robot. He thunked down a mug of bitter black coffee and said, "I saw your old thesis, you know, bipedal navigation on uneven ground. Most people would have given up." I looked up startled. I didn't have a choice. Back home, nobody cared. His mouth twisted into a familiar half-smile. So, that's why most of us end up here. Don't forget, Lucas, failure's the real start, not the end. A year slid by, then two. Our prototypes grew more complex. We landed a government grant for disaster relief robotics after demonstrating a modular walker that could cross rubble, none of it elegant, but it worked. For the first time, I felt a current running beneath my bones, each little victory knitting a kind of courage where the loss had hollowed me out. When I finally returned to Curitiba, it was early winter, the city a patchwork of grey clouds and old stone. My mother, her hair threaded silver, was waiting outside the bus terminal, her figure small and hopeful. I nearly didn't recognize her. She threw her arms around me, squeezing tighter than I remembered. "Look at you," she said, her voice both proud and bewildered. We walked home, my duffel knocking against lampposts, catching up on cousins, stories of rising food prices, the neighbors' endless renovations. Andre had a new job selling insurance. My old friends were scattered, some married, some gone abroad. At dinner that night, she set out her best plates, as if to prove something to the world. Andre arrived late, tie askew, still amused in a way that set my teeth on edge. "So," he grinned as he slid in, "our famous engineer is back. How's Sao Paulo? Flying cars yet?" I forced a smile, remembering Benet's advice. "Better, we are doing real work there." "Robots, right," he raised an eyebrow, chewing slowly. "Any of them managed to walk yet or still taking naps?" Actually, I hesitated, drew a breath. One of our models was chosen for a demonstration here in Curitiba, at the City Hall. We built the mobility for it, my design. It's part of a state project now. My mother blinked, soup spoon frozen. Andre whistled a low, impressed noise. "City Hall," he repeated, like in front of people. "Press 2, I said softly. He just shook his head, a flicker of disbelief still in his eyes. The morning of the demonstration, the city bristled with a cold wind. I wore my old university jacket, patched at the collar. Outside City Hall, reporters and camera crews clustered in shivering knots, their microphones bristling like antennae. The mayor, broad-shouldered and impatient, conferred quietly with aides while engineers hustled the crate onto the plaza. Our robot was nothing like the chrome men of old cartoons. It stood hip-high, legs jointed with carbon fiber curves, matte plating matte gray like rain-washed paving stones. Its head carried sensors and two wide eyes that blinked with quiet purpose as I powered it up. The control box warmed in my hands. I counted heartbeats, sweat gathering at my collar despite the cold. Then I saw them in the back, standing behind the crowd. My mother and Andre, bundled in scarves, arms crossed as if this were just another chilly day in the city. Nearby, a handful of former professors lingered with arms folded, skeptical and expectant. The city engineer announced the demonstration through a tinny loudspeaker. "Today, Curitiba will see a new stride forward for our disaster response teams. This bipedal robot will cross the simulated debris field and retrieve a payload from the far platform, created by our own Lucas Torres engineering group." A ripple moved through the crowd, cameras zoomed in. I knelt, locking the safety latches, and gave the robot its first command. It paused a moment, calculating, then placed one foot onto the uneven bricks, the hydraulics humming beneath its shell. Every step felt like an eternity. The robot wobbled, adjusted, caught itself with a delicate twist of its ankle joint. The crowd grew quiet. The rubble wasn't pretty, upturned wooden planks, stacked cinder blocks, a patch of gravel, but it was built to trip up anything less than perfect. Halfway across, the wind picked up. A paper bag skittered past, brushed the robot's foot. The ankle twisted, recalibrated, and just for a second, I saw Professor Vasconcelos' lips part, surprised. Dr. Muniz, standing next to him, frowned, then leaned closer as if she could see the code running inside the robot's head. At the far end, the robot bent at the waist. Its claw grasped a small toolbox, lifted it straight, and turned with perfect poise. The city engineer, sensing the moment, announced, "Safe retrieval, no stumbles, direct navigation." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Applause erupted, hesitant at first, then stronger. I scanned the crowd for my family. My mother dabbed her eyes, a hand pressed over her mouth. Andre stared, mouth open, his old skepticism faltering. Reporters pressed forward, cameras blinking red. Professor De Rosa approached, older now, his hair gone steel grey. He offered a hand, a real, firm handshake. "Lucas," he said quietly, "remarkable work. You should teach here when you're ready." For the first time in years, I stood taller, sunlight sharp against my face. The next week, news clippings plastered the city's kiosks with photos of the robot standing proud on the debris, my name in small print beneath. At home, our kitchen felt brighter, laughter easier. My mother watched each television report with fresh pride. They called you an inventor, she'd smile, setting the volume high. Andre stopped joking about robots. Instead, he asked real questions, wanting to know how it balanced, how the code predicted the next step. Once I caught him bragging to a friend on the phone, my brother's on TV. Built something important. Former classmates began to call, some asked for guidance, others wanted to collaborate. I visited my old university, walking past the committee office with its fresh white paint, the air lighter, memory less cruel. Dr. Muniz, wary but open, offered me a research partnership. We judged you harshly, she admitted. You proved us wrong. The anger I'd carried loosened, leaving space for something gentler, understanding, maybe even gratitude. They hadn't believed, but it hadn't stopped me. In some roundabout way, their rejection had forced me to forge my own way, every scrap of progress, every risk and sleepless night, sculpting the person I'd become. Still, the city had changed too. On certain nights I walked past the parks and overlooked the river, the streetlights blinking like fireflies, the air tasted of wet stone and eucalyptus. Neighborhood kids biked past, yelling after each other, voices bouncing off the old stones. One evening, while cleaning out the storage box under my childhood bed, I found the old schematics, the ones I'd presented on that first disastrous day. The corners were faded, the pencil lines blurred by time. I held them up to the weak lamp, tracing each joint and calculation, imperfect but honest, proof that dreams, however ridiculous they seemed, could become something real given time and bruises. At dinner with my mother and Andre, we lingered long after eating. She asked quietly, "Will you stay this time?" I thought about it, the startup still called, Sao Paulo's thrill tugging in my bones, but Curitiba was different now. It was more than the place I'd left, more than the echo of old doubts. It was the city where I'd once failed and where I'd learned to begin again, so I nodded. Yes, me, for a while at least, there's work to do here. And enough dreams for all of us. She smiled, eyes shining. Andre raised his glass, and for a quiet moment I felt the shape of my journey settle, a line of loss and reconstruction, reaching back and forth across time, tethered to home. Outside, the city exhaled, the wind soft in the eucalyptus, the old stones warm from the day. In their quiet strength I heard something like forgiveness, and I breathed it in, grateful, finally, simply to have returned.